Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
A South Bay city has become the latest in the county to adopt a homeless encampment ban. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. Chula Vista is officially moving forward with its own restrictions on homeless encampments. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says that's despite the fact fewer people are actually experiencing homelessness there.
Over the past year, homelessness in Chula Vista has fallen. That's according to a city-led census, which counted around 450 people living on the street in August, down from more than 500 people last year. But the city council is still moving forward with new restrictions on encampments. They voted unanimously to advance the ordinance. Chula Vista Councilmember Rachel Moreno said it's necessary to support the city's housing and homelessness staff.
Without these ordinances, without the support of the city and us up here, I just don't think that our team has the right tools to be able to do their job.
The decision drew strong criticism from advocates for unhoused people, including Chula Vista resident Sylvia Irigoyen Adame, who said her daughter recently died while living in an encampment.
If they fall, they don't need to be smashed and hit, made feel like more like crap. They need more support. They don't need to be incarcerated.
Researchers who study homelessness have found that law enforcement crackdowns can reduce trust in city services and can make it harder for people to actually leave homelessness behind. Still, a growing number of cities in California are taking a harsher stance. The Chula Vista City Council will hold a final vote on their ordinance in the coming weeks. In Chula Vista, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Well, as we head into the weekend, getting ready for some big changes. We're going to have plenty of sunshine here as we head into the weekend. It's going to be nice. It is going to be breezy, but we are going to see some cooler starts with some morning lows in the 50s for some areas. I'll detail that updated forecast coming up.
The FBI is warning of a new scam targeting teens with deadly consequences. It involves extorting them over sexually explicit photos. Here's KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen with what parents can do to protect their children.
With a daughter in middle school and one entering high school,
it gets scary.
Carmen Asnani is always worried about their safety, especially when they start to have their own phones. As any responsible parent would, she gave her daughters the talk, the online safety talk.
I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they've had their phones for probably 3 years now. So that discussion happened early on.
She talked to them about misinformation online, shopping scams, and not answering calls from unknown numbers. Growing up, her parents gave her a different kind of safety talk.
The scary person following you, who's on the bike behind you, that type of thing.
But Gregory Hansen with the FBI says parents need to talk to teens about another online danger, sextortion.
You're going to want to have a conversation with them before it even happens.
Sextortion involves scammers convincing teens to send sexually explicit images or videos to them and then threatening to release those photos or videos unless the victim pays up or produces more. And this type of scam is increasing at an alarming rate.
We had one 6-month period where I think we had went from about 5,800 tips up to over 6,000, and we're seeing about a 20 to 30% increase from prior years.
Between October 2021 and March 2023, authorities saw more than 13,000 reports of sextortions of minors.
And the FBI says scammers are targeting teens through popular social media apps such as Instagram, and it happens faster than you think.
Once they target a victim on one of these, whether it's gaming or social media, they will try to move them over to a chatting and streaming platform.
That's when scammers start to coerce teens into sharing sexually explicit photos of themselves. There are two types of sextortions: traditional and financial. The traditional is typically predators looking to get more photos from their victims. Financial is when scammers threaten to send those explicit photos to the victim's friends or families. The typical victims are teenage boys, and that has deadly consequences.
There's one such story where a minor male ended up being contacted 11 o'clock at night by about 4 a.m., maybe even earlier, had already taken his life.
Social media companies are starting to take steps to protect teens from predators and scammers. Meta, the owner of Instagram, recently announced new teen accounts that are more restricted and private by default, with other safeguards that the company introduced. But Hansen says parents are the best safeguards.
Make sure that your kids can come to you with anything.
Asdani just want her kids to be safe. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, you can call or text 988. You can also visit 988lifeline.org for 24/7 free and confidential support. A county leader testified before Congress today about the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border. County Supervisor Jim Desmond told the House Homeland Security Committee there was what he called an invasion of people crossing our borders illegally from September 2023 to June of this year. He presented data he sources to Customs and Border Protection, saying an average of 600 people were entering the county daily. Ahead of Desmond's testimony, a border advocate told our media partner KGTV Desmond is misrepresenting the situation at the border.
We spent $6 million to set up a migrant receiving center to assist those dropped here, to move them more quickly to other parts of the country. These were local dollars that could have been spent on roads, infrastructure, and parks. Migrants slept in San Diego Airport. They stay in our homeless shelters, and our hospital and healthcare systems are strained.
We need to ensure that there's a recommitment to the asylum process by this government to people who are seeking safety from harm. People should not have to cross through dangerous ways, such as climbing a border wall or through the oceans or through the mountains.
CBP data shows there were about 14,500 migrant encounters in San Diego in August. It's the moment millions of American consumers have been waiting for. The Federal Reserve has announced its first interest rate cut since March of 2020. Karen Kafa has the details and what's next.
The Federal Open Market Committee decided to reduce the degree of policy restraint by lowering our policy interest rate by a half percentage point.
A pivotal moment in the Federal Reserve's battle against post-pandemic inflation and for U.S. consumers squeezed by both higher prices and higher interest rates. The Fed starting to peel its key interest rate off of a 23-year high, setting the wheels in motion for consumers to eventually see relief on debt payments from credit cards to auto loans to mortgages. But that relief won't come immediately or quickly as the Fed keeps an eye on inflation and the slowing labor market to guide future decisions.
They have to look at this job market and figure out, is this a return to normal or is this a slowdown that we need to be concerned with? And I think those call for two very different policy prescriptions, and that's sort of the tricky balance that they're trying to strike at the moment.
Despite the cooling job market, data released Tuesday by the Commerce Department showed consumer spending holding up. Most economists viewing the Fed's September meeting not as an end of an era for interest rates, but the beginning of a new one.
And I think everyone agrees right now that, including the Fed officials, that interest rates are going to head much lower because that's ultimately needed to sustain a healthy rate of economic growth.
The Federal Reserve hiking interest rates 11 times starting in March 2022. The central bank's last increase was in July 2023. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
As part of our new Public Matters initiative, we're launching a new segment. We're calling it Why It Matters, with our Public Matters partner, Voice of San Diego. Today, CEO Scott Lewis explains a recent kerfuffle in the local Republican Party and why it matters.
For the last 20 years, nobody has been more prominent or influential in the local Republican Party than Carl DeMaio. But now, that party is going all in to support his opponent in a closely watched assembly race. They are denouncing DeMaio in a way that would not have been thinkable just last year. Earlier this month, Republican Party Chair Corey Gustafson released an open letter encouraging Republicans to support Andrew Hayes in the 75th assembly race. He went after DeMaio, writing, quote, DeMaio endorsed candidates opposed to our officially endorsed Republican candidates, helping Democrats win seats that should be Republican. He has bullied, threatened, and lied about current, future Republican Central Committee members. Enough is enough. Here's what's happening now. The reopened San Diego leader, Amy Reichert, called DeMaio out. She said that he threatened her and that was the last straw. Reichert, who collaborated with DeMaio before, shared this video of a confrontation she had with DeMaio associates while she protested one of his events. Also, police officers are challenging DeMaio after a decades-old feud with him. They filed a complaint with the FPPC against his organization. Quote, here, it appears that Mr. DeMaio and Reform California have blurred the lines between the resources of each entity, resulting in illegal contributions from Reform California to Mr. DeMaio's assembly campaign. That's what the complaint says. And here's why it matters. The Republican Party has already endorsed Hayes over DeMaio, but because of DeMaio's influence, Gustafson and party leaders agreed not to let Hayes benefit from that endorsement. Parties can help candidates in three major ways. They can raise and spend unlimited funds communicating with members, they can include candidates on slate mailers showing party endorsements, and they can promote that candidate in their own voter guides. Now, all of that is on the table for Hayes. They can use it to help Hayes. Not a single Republican is running for office in the city of San Diego, and that's a big change from when Republicans had the mayor's office, the city attorney's office, and more than a few city council seats, and that was just a few years ago. We'll have to wait to see whether this is the start of a new party or a sign of further dysfunction.
Voice of San Diego is one of our Public Matters partners, along with iNewsSource. To explore all our stories and sign up for updates, visit kpbs.org/Public Matters.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the News Hour, what the Federal Reserve interest rate cut says about the fight against inflation. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
In the wake of Sunday's apparent assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump, lawmakers are considering whether the U.S. Secret Service is underfunded or simply mismanaged. Our Washington correspondent, Julia Benbrook, has details on that discussion.
At his first campaign event after a second apparent assassination attempt, former President Donald Trump praised the Secret Service while also acknowledging resource concerns at the agency.
These guys do a great job. Now, they do need more people, and they've been complaining about that for a long time.
President Joe Biden has also emphasized he believes the Secret Service needs more personnel to handle an elevated threat environment for political candidates.
One thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they, in fact, need more services. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
While lawmakers on the Hill say they are open to changes.
We want to get a report on this latest incident. If increasing the funding is part of the solution, I'm for it.
If the Secret Service is in need of more resources, we are prepared to providing it for them, possibly in the upcoming funding agreement.
Some are still contending with whether the Secret Service is underfunded or simply mismanaged. And many have questions about what meaningful security improvements can be made with less than 50 days until the election. As investigations are still underway regarding the two major Trump incidents, the Secret Service's acting director says he will work with Congress to address the security gaps exposed. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
The San Diego City Council wants to make it easier to install traffic safety measures like crosswalks and speed humps. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more.
The council on Monday unanimously approved a resolution declaring safety is the #1 priority when it comes to transportation. It comes after many residents complained city policies are too restrictive around traffic calming. Even locations where pedestrians have been killed sometimes don't meet the city's criteria for safety improvements. Council President Shawnila Rivera says that needs to change.
And when I hear from community members that they can't get a traffic safety measure implemented on their street because it does not satisfy some specific scoring criteria, it bothers me. It bothers me because it's a resident of my district who simply wants to feel safer living in their neighborhood when they are running into barriers.
In 2015, San Diego adopted a goal of ending all traffic deaths and serious injuries on city streets by 2025. But despite the city's efforts, traffic deaths have actually increased since 2015.
Over the weekend, the husband of one of our city employees was seriously injured while biking with their one-year-old child when they were doored by a car illegally parked at a bike lane. We just have to do more to make our streets safer.
The council asked the Office of the Independent Budget Analyst to present options for how to better instill safety into the city's transportation policies. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Affordable, permanent housing solutions to homeless and underserved communities. That's the goal of today's Tiny Houses Build Day in Lakeside. Students from 5 local high schools put their hands together to work with professional tradesmen to build 6 movable homes. The innovative event also gives these students an opportunity to learn new skills as the next generation of home builders.
So when you look at the 5 schools that are building tiny homes, this is the quintessential example of giving back. So through this Giving Back project, we're developing high-demand skills, working with apprentices, seeing how the world of work really looks while you're still in high school.
Construction companies also benefit by having access to a pool of well-trained employees. The event is sponsored by the Warrior Village Project, Workforce Connect, and the San Diego County Office of Education. COVID-19 cases are continuing to rise in many parts of the U.S. With flu season coming up and RSV levels already starting to tick up, experts say now is the time to protect yourself. Mandy Gaither explains how to get ready for respiratory virus season.
It's about that time of year again. The CDC forecast suggests this respiratory virus season will be similar to last year's, which brought more than 20 hospitalizations for every 100,000 people in 1 week at its peak. That's far worse than in pre-pandemic years.
Getting our vaccination numbers up is still an ongoing battle.
Dr. Jared Eddy with National Jewish Health says the best way to protect yourself and those around you is by getting vaccinated. Last year was the first year the U.S. had vaccines available to protect against all 3 major respiratory viruses: flu, RSV, and COVID-19.
You are able to get vaccines at the same time.
When it comes to COVID-19, the CDC recommends everyone ages 6 months and older receive an updated vaccine this season. When to get it varies. If you're at higher risk, including seniors or people who are immunocompromised, now is a good time to receive it since COVID-19 cases are high. Others who may have natural immunity from a recent infection may decide to wait. The seasonal flu vaccine is also recommended for everyone 6 months and older. September and October are the best times to get those. As for RSV, the vaccine is recommended for all adults 75 and older, along with those 60 and older at higher risk because of certain chronic medical conditions or if they live in a nursing home or long-term care facility. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The RSV vaccine is a one-time dose, so older adults who got the shot last year won't need another one this year. The CDC says pregnant people can also receive the RSV vaccine to protect a newborn, or antibodies can be given to an infant after birth.
Well, as we head into tonight, I will be tracking some cooler air with some cloud coverage here to start your early Thursday morning. Overnight temperatures will be a mix of mid-60s, seasonable here for this time of year, with some low clouds near the coast as we head into the overnight hours. But for the rest of Southern California, we'll see temperatures ranging from the 50s to the 60s. Those 50s are going to be below normal here for this time of year. 61 tonight for Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. But as we head into tomorrow, lots of sunshine, really nice weather with temperatures primarily in the 70s. The closer to the coast you get, even the desert areas will be in the 90s here for tomorrow. So overall, not too bad. Future track radar, 10 o'clock tonight, there will be some showers around Reno there along the California-Nevada state lines. But then after that, as we head into tomorrow, 3 o'clock, there will be some isolated showers and storms, possibly even some flakes of snow in the higher elevations. But San Francisco down towards LA, there will be some light showers, but overall it looks like it'll stay dry here across far Southern California. Even as we head into Friday afternoon, we'll start to see some more sunshine. So here's the setup for Thursday. There will be that rainfall primarily across Nevada, even those flakes of snow I was talking about in the higher elevations. But other than that, it's going to be high, it's going to be dry, it's going to be nice here across the majority of the coast. So for that 5-day outlook here for us, lots of sunshine here along the coastal regions. Highs will be in the 70s as we head into the weekend. But look at those lows for Friday and Saturday morning. 50s, very mild for this time of year. Looks like we'll get back into the 80s starting on Sunday, heading into Monday. Now, inland, we'll see temperatures in the 70s as we head into the weekend before they start to rebound in the mid to upper 80s by Monday. Overnight lows, a mix of upper 50s to low 60s. The mountain regions, we'll see some moderate conditions here for the next couple of days, really on Friday. Look at those afternoon temperatures. We'll be back in the 70s as we head into next week. And then for the desert areas, it does look like we will get back to the triple digits as we head into next week. For KPBS, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Damian Lotus.
They are an unusual sight to see in San Diego. Fire prevention specialists who have been hard at work on our urban hillsides. They don't require any special training, but as Ken Kramer shows us in this story about San Diego, they're very qualified to do what they do.
Off we go. May I introduce you to Mr. Gonzalez?
Okay, man, I'll see you out there on the cut. Okay.
Johnny Gonzalez, who is headed up this road, going to check in on his 300 workers, all of whom right now are on a lunch break. Or maybe it's dinner, midday snack, tea time, hold the tea. It doesn't matter. You just eat. It's what you do if you're a brush-clearing goat.
Here they come.
And a herd of goats like this will devour tons of brush because, well, they eat and then rest and then eat some more, about 9 times a day, Johnny says.
And at night, if it so suits them, they'll get up in the middle of the night and they'll chow down for another 2 or 3 hours.
Maybe you've seen them on the job, staying 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes longer, unbothered, munching away at overgrown vegetation right in the city, in urban canyons, often within sight and sound of the freeway.
They're not country goats, you know, they're not meant to be in Switzerland, and they're not going to be in Colorado. They're right here in your neighborhood. They're in La Mesa. They're in El Cajon. We could be in Carlsbad. We were just in Chula Vista.
He actually has a few herds at work here and there around Southern California, and when city people see these goats scattered across the hillside as 'twere a pasture land scene, it's hard not to find it pretty charming. Well, Johnny understands that. He really does. It's just that for him, there are a lot of other things going on. His goats are contracted by government agencies, municipalities, private and corporate landowners to eat flash fuels along the ground that burn quickly when there's a fire, and what are called ladder fuels that spread the fire to taller brush, even as they leave behind just enough natural vegetation to catch blowing embers. The goats are really good at it, he says, and they do it all year long. Moving from one project to the next, there's no home base for these goats.
They're born and raised in these paddocks, so the mothers have the kids in the pen. So these does are having their families in this environment, so they just become very, very accustomed to the comings and goings of the day.
Like traffic, doesn't seem to bother him a bit. Spot and Cream Puff, Dottie and Grim and all the rest can work right next to a busy freeway and stay focused on the menu. And yes, by the way, they do have names, a lot of them.
The children name them, and when they name a goat, you better doggone well know the name of the goat.
They're never alone. At this site in Fletcher Hills, there are 2 goat herders come out from the Imperial Valley. Blade Dominguez and Caleb Hobelman make camp and stay with the goats whatever the weather, day and night.
You're working hard, but you're also working at what you love.
And they get to name some of the goats too.
Well, there's Pablo, he's somewhere around here, and then there's Raphael, Michelangelo, Leonardo. I'm a big fan of Renaissance.
And a couple of dogs who watch out for the herd. They preferred not to be identified, but, well, if at night, say, a coyote or a predator comes sniffing around.
The goats bleat in a certain way. The dogs know exactly what that means, and so do we.
On the one hand, there's a very practical side to all of this, everything planned out months in advance with fire prevention specialists. Johnny talks about biodiversity, carbon sequestration, climate change, how as goats digest the brush, it kills off invasive seeds.
You don't have bacteria transfers. You don't have nitrogen blooms. It's clean for the water. All these different things that a scientist could tell you.
And then there's just the sight of the goats, a rural touch along the hurried freeway, a glimpse of nature on suburban land, which hasn't seen such a thing in probably 140 years, if ever. For him, for the herders, it's a life's work.
You have to commit to this. This job does not go away. You know, they don't get parked in the garage. They don't go home for Easter. Christmas is here with the goats.
And here with them on this day, as twilight turns to evening, are Johnny's team, the goat herders and the herd dogs. For all the environmental land management and fire fuels mitigation going on here, at the end of the day especially, it's hard not to find a little wistful charm in this scene. And if fire should try to pay a visit to this hillside only to find the goats got here first, well then I guess they deserve to be taken to lunch. For what could be a better ending to this story about San Diego?
Wow, talk about a win-win. If you want to watch more of Ken Kramer's stories about San Diego, his half-hour show can be seen every Thursday night at 8, right here on KPBS. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition looks at a new study which found thousands of chemicals used in food packaging are getting into our bodies. And KPBS Midday Edition is on everything arts and culture happening in San Diego. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.